While the curtain is slowly being pulled back, in the halfway point in the season, Westworld is getting more interesting and more unpredictable than ever before. Hey guys, it's Kevin in. Happy Halloween to all of you. Hope y'all are having a great Halloween. And in this video, I'm going to be reviewing Simmer for Westworld Season 1, Episode 5, Contrapasso, and I was definitely looking forward to this episode. As you guys know, I've been loving this show, and this episode, we are now halfway through the season. I was definitely looking forward to it, and I know I said that I don't think you're going to make an episode better than the pilot for a while, and while I don't think this was maybe as good as the pilot, this was just as good as the pilot, if not better. I absolutely love this episode. I think there was some great stuff revealed in this episode. But it also is the episode that has the least amount of characters so far. I mean, Bernard wasn't anywhere to be found. Cullen wasn't here. Lee hasn't been in the show since episode 2. Stubbs wasn't here. There were so many characters that weren't in this episode, but I didn't care because it is probably one of the most character-focused episodes we've had yet, and I really did love that. But let's just get in this episode. There were a lot of things revealed in this episode. Obviously, there's a lot to talk about, and I definitely do want to get right into it. So we start off, we see Ford, who I think this is really the episode where we're getting more into Ford as a character, because Ford's a very layered character, as we know. I mean, there's a reason why he hasn't really revealed his backstory, and I know a lot of people are saying he's heading this villainous direction, but something I like they're doing with Ford is that they're not just making him that villain that just, it's just the laughing villain that's twiddling his thumbs, all, twirling around his mustache. That's not who Ford is. Ford has a reason for creating Westworld, and we're really starting to see what that is and why he wants to keep things the way they are. We're definitely seeing that, and I like the way they're really doing that overall. I'm really liking Ford as a character. We see he's talking to old Bill, who we actually haven't seen since the first episode, and he asks him if he has any stories, and Ford says that he does, and he then asks him if you want to know the saddest thing he ever saw. He tells him this story about how when he was a boy, him and his brother wanted dogs, so their father took in an old greyhound, and one day they took it to the park, and their dad had warned them how fast the dog was, but they couldn't resist it, so his brother took off the leash. In an instant, the dog spotted the car. He imagined it must have looked like a piece of felt. He ran, and he never saw anything as beautiful as the dog running until at last he caught it, and to the horror of everyone, he killed it and tore it into a million pieces. Then he just sat there confused. The dog had spent its whole life trying to catch the cat, and now it had no idea what to do. And you can tell he's obviously is talking about the hosts and how they have a purpose, and how, if they don't have a purpose, they don't really know what to do. So old Bill says he'll drink to the lady with the white shoes, and clearly does not understand what he's really talking about. But I thought it was a really well done scene, just showing the way that Ford really does see all of the all of the hosts, because yeah, they do all have a purpose there. They're all there for a reason. We definitely do see that, but I think really the thing we're supposed to get from this episode is, like I said, we're really starting to see why Ford is the way he is, and I definitely really did like that. So that was definitely really well done scene, really good stuff there, and again, really great showcase for Anthony Hopkins as well. Any scene with him so far has just been great. But we then see Dolores, who's standing in a graveyard, who she by far has the most radical shift out of any character in this episode. We'll get into that, but she hears a voice telling her to find him, and a flash of an old church, and before Logan interrupts, Logan points out the pariahs in the distance, a city filled with criminals and other unsavory sorts, and William, meanwhile, is very concerned about Dolores. He thought that she was talking to herself earlier, and she tells him it must have been the wind. And Logan explains that pariah, because obviously, he knows that definitely there's something going on there. He doesn't know what extent, but he knows that definitely something is happening there. But Logan explains that Pariah is more raw than Sweetwater, and then gives a little background about the park. Now, I was a little surprised that Logan and William were back together in this episode, but they both are going on their own kind of separate paths, but you definitely do see they're both reaching the same destination. They're just two very different people, and that's something this episode really does drive. I really am loving the way that this Logan, William, and Dolores storyline is going, because I thought these were just going to be two characters that are kind of just observers, but I like that they're doing a lot more with them, and I'm really liking where we're headed with them. But basically, he talks about the more grandiose the story becomes. He tells him that Westworld seems to be losing tons of money, which is where Logan and William's company comes in. So I'm starting to think that Logan and William didn't just come to Westworld for their own benefit. They came there because they were forced to, basically, by their company. That they are there saying, hey, this is a place that's dying. We need to investigate. We need to see if it actually is a good spot. If it actually is, still somewhere that people should go. Or if it just is a dying attraction. If it really is as good as, if it really is as good as Logan remembers. So I'm starting to think that that's really what's going on, and I like that we don't know much about their personal life. We definitely start to find out more in this episode, but before this episode, we don't know a ton, so the stuff we find out in this episode was really well done. And basically, Logan also mentioned that the unknown partner of Westworld, but that his company's lawyers couldn't find a thing. So he knows nothing about Arnold or anything. He can't find any research, and that's understandable. We find out why a little bit later, but they then come across a group of desperados who call themselves the Army of New Virginia, who everyone else calls the Confederados, and basically because they're Confederates and they are Confederate soldiers who refuse to surrender after the war. Now they work as mercenaries, and Logan thinks that they're the keys to the game of war. Supposedly, it's at the far reaches of the park. Remember, he just wants to create chaos. He's just a regular guest there who wants to see shit go down, but he's never made it that far, but this could be their chance to do so. So then we see Lawrence. He's with the man in black and says he knows he's plenty of fucked up individuals in his time, but few that would hold a candle to him. And because, again, he's very upset at the man in black for what he did to his family. Again, understandable, but he talks about how Teddy was Wyatt's friend, and the man in black says that is exactly why they need him. He's going to lead him straight to the big bad wolf. As we know, the man in black is trying to find the end of the story, and Lawrence says to not count it. They go into the woods, and the man in black takes him off the horse. He asks him if he believes in faith, and Lawrence says if he does, he'd like to kick it in his teeth, and the man in black says he hurt his feelings, and as a friend of his use, to say there's a path for everyone, his path leads him back to him, and he asks if he ever wonders why he's kept him with him this whole journey, which is a good question. What exactly does Lawrence benefit the man in black? We don't really know, and Lawrence says that maybe he enjoys his company. The man in black agrees, says there's not a man in this world who would take that tone with him like he does in a past life, perhaps, and Teddy is not looking long for this world, and Lawrence says he's not going to pariah. There's no way he's going to make it that far. He's lost too much blood, and the young boy the four talked to comes up to them, which I thought was interesting we saw, and he asks if they're lost, and the man in black explains the situation. He asks if there's any water nearby and tells the boy to get them some, and the boy leaves. The man in black says he's too small. Lawrence, of course, is wondering, what they made him go send them water for. They don't really need it, and says that he's the one who made him fill up the So's bag this morning. The man in black then dumps the water, says it's a shame he always enjoyed their time together, says the path that brought them there wasn't for him, it was for Teddy, and he slits Lawrence's throat and says he'll see him on the other side, mainly because Lawrence is of no use to him anymore. Lawrence is just complaining. He isn't going along with his plan, and the man in black is not going to let anything stop him. He has a very specific goal. We get why he wants to achieve that goal, and the fact that he literally slit Lawrence's throat, I was shocked when he did that. Obviously, Lawrence isn't dead. We know that Lawrence can come back at any point, but just knowing that the man in black did that, it showed that what he needed from Lawrence then, he doesn't need from him now. And I thought overall they showed that very well here, but definitely really well done scene. Maeve is then brought into the body shop. We get two new characters in this episode, the technicians, who one is very skeptical, and one you can tell is very experienced, and really these two don't really get along at all. And I think this was kind of the perfect example of Logan and William. The technician, the one that's inexperienced, he doesn't just want to cut into Maeve. He feels like this is a living thing, this is just not right, why are we doing this? While the experienced one is saying, no, this is what we do, this is your job, if this was your description, this is what you're meant to do. And in Westworld's back office for repairs, one of the technicians also has a dead bird hidden in the K-nets for some reason, and I thought it was just interesting to see some insight on how the background of Westworld feels, because it feels like everyone there feels the same, but you can see very quickly that that's not the case. I mean, Bernard, I don't really think thinks the same as Ford. Definitely he doesn't think the same as Ford, and we've definitely seen that here. And even with the technicians, things are very divided, and I like that in general the show has very divided opinions, and I think it just really does show the way the show is going. I really did like that overall, and I think it really does add to this episode. So the man in black then wakes Teddy up, says a couple of gallons of Lawrence swivering around in him. He literally ties Lawrence to a tree, getting blood out of him so we can get it to Teddy, and he says it's doing pretty good. He asks him if he's ready to head back out, and Teddy again just wants to be killed. He at this point feels that he has no point, and the man in black says it's not his fault, he's suffering, he used to be beautiful. When this place started, he opened one of them up once into a million perfect pieces, and mentions that the hosts were actually once robots, but were actually changed to flesh and blood, which they said was done to improve the park experience, but really was done because it was cheaper, and that's why things are so messed up now. That's why Westworld's in such a bad state. We definitely do see that, and It seems to me that the man in black used to work at Westworld. That's what I'm getting from at least. I think this is a former employee. I think it's someone that used to work there. He left for personal reasons, and now he wants to finish what he started, essentially. You know, that's what he wants to do, and then you definitely do see that here. So Teddy says whatever it is he wants from him, it's not going to be worth a damn to him like this. The man in black then convinces Teddy to follow him by lying, saying that Wyatt has Dolores, which obviously gets Teddy to join him, and the way that he was able to do that, it definitely made sense. Obviously, that's the one thing that Teddy cares about, but it's also the only thing that Teddy seems to care about. I mean, yeah, he cares about finding Wyatt, but remember, this is a very new story. Most of his story up to this point has been finding Dolores, and we definitely do see that. But Dolores is actually looking at a dead body. She has a flashback to some massacre in the past, very similar to what Maeve was getting in episode 2. And William comes by and talks to her, but Dolores notices when he makes a reference to the real world, and they briefly hold hands before Logan arrives with an entry for the Day of the Dead theme parade. William lets Logan know he wants to do what's in her best interest, which Logan doesn't at all understand, because again, he just sees her as, you know, a host. There's nothing else to her. She's just a host, and there's nothing else. And Dolores sees herself walking the parade, so she joins in to find her doppelganger, but she passes out when Ford in a mass whispers a code word to her, and essentially shuts her down. And I think it's because he knows there's something glitchy going on with her, and this next scene between Ford and Dolores says a lot about the relationship overall. I don't really think we've had a scene between these two. We did in the first episode, but not these two one-on-one. We're so used to seeing Bernard and Dolores together, and seeing the way that Bernard handles things a lot different than the way Ford does. While Bernard treats her like he's, you know, like she's his own daughter, really, Ford treats her more like she's a slave, and treats her more like he's being interrogated. You know, that's what it feels like. It's an interrogation. And Dolores wakes up in the Westworld facilities, talking with Ford. Dolores lies when Ford asks her if she's heard Arnold's voice, and Ford puts Dolores into analysis mode. We find out that Arnold spoke to Dolores on the day she died, and says she would help Arnold destroy this place, and Ford wonders aloud if they had put Dolores in a bigger role, would she be the hero or the villain of the story? Maybe she wasn't meant to be the damsel in distress, and Ford then apologized for pulling her out of the park, but there's no one left that was there, and afterwards we hear Dolores tell someone that Ford doesn't know, and that she didn't tell him anything. So while it seems like she had no idea what he's talking about, she clearly was very experienced in what was going on. There's clearly something more going on here. We don't really know what that's about, but overall I found that to be very compelling, and I can't wait to see really where that's going to go. So in headquarters, the body shop technician brings a dead bird. It's the host bird back to life. Before his partner walks in, the first technician admits that he's secretly trying to learn how to code hosts. And I love the way this scene was done with the body shop technician just completely just chewing out this guy, saying, no, 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 you are meant to carve hosts. That's all you're meant to do. You're here to, you know, fix bodies, and you're not here to code hosts. That's all you really are. You're a butcher and nothing else. And it just really says a lot about these characters. These characters are meant to be one thing, but they're just not one thing. That's the thing. They're more than one thing because they're human. And that's something that even in headquarters does not fly. You're meant to have one purpose, and you can't go against said purpose, and you definitely do see that here. But he then wheels in Maeve's body once again, which unnerves the technician, and his partner berates him for it, tells him to toughen up. And again, he sees her as a living thing. He doesn't see it as you know, just a host. He sees it as a living thing, and he doesn't really want to hurt her. So again, I like the difference of opinion between those two. Very interesting stuff there. Logan and William to meet Alonzo, who's actually Lawrence in a new role, and Logan wants to meet the Confederate Civil War soldiers, but Alonzo instead wants to kill Logan, and Dolores steps in, mentioned that Alonzo's looking for something, which prompts Alonzo to change his mind, and this is really the moment that has all the big stuff in it. Like, all the stuff I'm really talking about happens here. But if William, Logan, and Dolores can steal some nitroglycerin from the Union Army, that might convince the Confederado to meet with them, because obviously they need to meet with them, Logan for entertainment purposes, William and Dolores for, you know, something deeper. But they stop a caravan of Union soldiers. This scene was awesome, just the way that they covered their face and they look like actual bandits. I mean, the raid goes smoothly at first, but Logan then picks a fight with the soldiers. He quickly gets very overwhelmed. I mean, as we know, Logan is just such a savage, and he's just killing everyone, and William suddenly steps in. He shoots 3 of the soldiers without any emotion, and that was really interesting to see. The fact that William actually just shot them, and mainly, I don't know if it was because of Dolores, but Logan, who is getting choked out, is thrilled William finally getting to the spirit of the park, but Dolores is horrified. Again, she looks at these people as people. You know, she doesn't know that they're hosts, and you know, I definitely need to feel bad for there, but Alonso holds up his end of the bargain. He sets up a meeting between Logan and the Confederado, and Alonso also suggests an evening of celebration, which means a giant orgy. I mean, a giant orgy. There's like 30 or 40 women in that orgy. It was pretty crazy to see, but I really did like the way that that was done overall. Really interesting stuff there, and again, I like just seeing the difference between the way that Dolores reacts to something, the way that William reacts to something. They're just all very different reactions, and we definitely do see that, and Elsie then finds out that the rogue host from earlier is due to be incinerated, so she decides to intervene. She blackmails. Now, of course, you know, she knows what's really going on. Again, no, she couldn't get through to anyone, and I like that she's not letting anyone stop her. You know, she's going to do what she feels is right. She knows what's going on. She's not wrong. I think what is going on is what she thinks is going on, and even though Bernard is denying, you know, her claims and everything, she's right. She is. She's right, and she has a right to think this stuff, and she's not going to let anyone tell her what to do, and I definitely did like that. Very similar to the way Dolores does that. I think that's something the show just does very well, is be a show of independence, and you definitely do see that here. So she ends up blackmailing one of the body shop workers who we find out had sex with one of the hosts. And I thought what she did here was really clever. The way she basically said, look, we can do one of two things. Either you're going to say that you are helping me with some code stuff, or you're going to admit to being a perv and you're going to get fired. Essentially that he, you know, was just a necrophiliac, and not even a perv, a necrophiliac, that's what she said, and into giving her access to the host for 5 minutes. So Elsie discovers that the host actually had a satellite uplink embedded into its body, and that someone was using the host to smuggle data out of the park. So really weird what's going on there. I'm willing to bet that it's the Man in Black. That's what I think. I think the Man in Black is working for them in some larger way. I don't really know how, but that's kind of what I feel, especially when we get to the ending of this episode, which I definitely do want to talk about. But at Alonso's orgy, William tries to back out of Logan's plan to play war games. Logan gets nasty with William in a hurry, saying that he only promoted him because he wasn't a threat, and that Logan's sister married William for the same reason, the fact that he wasn't a threat, and he stands by that. He does not find him a threat, and William almost punches Logan. He storms out instead, and just a really well done scene. Again, even though these two seem to stay together, they're anything but friends. You definitely do see that, and Westworld is breaking them. It really is. I mean, we went to the show, they had a fairly complicated but fun relationship, and this really is breaking them, and you definitely do see that. So, Dolores leaves the orgy. She finds a tarot card reader, which shows her a picture of the maze, and Dolores then has a hallucination where she sees herself unraveling. Again, we're getting more set up with the maze. What's the maze really about? I think the end of the season is going to lead us to that, and then she runs out of the building where she sees Alonso pump some corpses full of nitro. Dolores then tries to warn William, eventually kisses him so they'll leave, because that was the only way, and I like the way the relationship is going, because, yeah, they do kind of need each other. I mean, Dolores doesn't really need Teddy. Teddy just gets killed every 5 seconds, but William kind of does need Dolores. This is someone who he understands. This is someone who isn't just there to make fun of the park, and more importantly, it's a real connection. I mean, these two genuinely do care about each other, and even though Dolores may be a host, she's perfectly capable of feeling real emotion. You definitely do see she's starting to really care for William, and I really do like the way the relationship is going, but outside, some of the Confederate discover the nitro that they were given was fake, and they take Logan captive. Such a well-done twist. I really love this. William runs outside. He sees a Confederati drag Logan away, but William refused to help his friend, so William and Dolores end up coring themselves. Dolores suddenly shoots all of the Confederati in this crazy scene where she actually says that she wants to lead a different path. She no longer wants to be a damsel in distress. She feels this wasn't her purpose, and she wants to do something more, and just that in general is very compelling. It makes sense why we've gotten all the stuff we've gotten with Dolores so far, and definitely puts her in a completely new direction for the rest of the season. I can't wait to see where this is really going to go. But anyways, they're able to get on the train where they escape Pariah. They board the train, they run into Alonso, who reveals himself to actually be Lawrence, and they come to an uneasy truce when Dolores sees the maze symbol on the coffin. Dolores says she's coming to no one in particular, and it seems that she feels this is going to be her destiny. This is where she's going to feel, you know, this is where she's going to find her calling, and I really love where that is all going. I think it's just so interesting what they're doing with Dolores. I'm going to get more into that when we get to the end of the episode overall, but next we get to a scene that I think was definitely well earned. This is something that we've definitely been leading up to, and that is, what is the Man in Black's relationship with the rest of the Westworld employees? Now, I was willing to bet that he caused a disaster, or that he's someone that they can't beat. Seems like it's the other way around, though, because he walks into a bar with Teddy. Ford suddenly arrives at the bar. He takes a seat with the Man in Black. The Man in Black admits that he actually plays a villain in the park because he feels that Westworld is missing something and that he feels they need a villain. And that's true. There aren't really many villains besides the Man in Black. The Man in Black is the reason for most of the villainy in the town, and he then asks whether Wyatt is just another obstacle to finding the center of the maze, which it seems like is what everyone wants to do. They don't really know how this ends, and the Man in Black also says that he saved the park from Arnold 35 years ago, which is assumably why he has carte blanche to do anything he wants in the park, because, you know, he saved Arnold. So the Man in Black then asks Ford if he's going to stop him, but Ford said he'd hate to interfere with a voyage to self-discovery and then leave. So it really seems like these two aren't really clashing. They just really have different ways of thinking this, and I'm looking forward to seeing where that's going to go. This is a completely different direction than what I thought, but I'm definitely on board to seeing the way they connect the Man in Black and Ford. There's clearly a lot more going on with these two than we thought, and I love that. But we see at the end of the episode, the body shop technician tries to secretly code the bird again, this time with much more success than before. He also accidentally wakes up. Maeve knows him by his name and says it's time they had a chat, and that is the way the episode ends. Really amazing stuff overall, guys. So much to talk about for next week, but let's just get in this episode overall because I definitely have a lot to say about it. So, wow, what an episode. I mean, really, this to me was a game-changing episode. Not for everyone, but especially for Dolores, the Man in Black, Maeve. I mean, everyone really is going somewhere completely different than I thought, and I really do like that about this show. I like that this isn't really predictable. I haven't really been able to predict anything, especially with what's going on with Dolores. I had no idea what she really is going to do. I thought that she was going to try to rebel against everyone, but it doesn't seem that way to me. It seems like Dolores feels that she's not going to let anyone choose their fate for her. She's going to do what she feels she was meant to do. And I keep going back to the conversation that Ford had with her, with him saying, you know, are you a hero? Are you a villain? I feel Dolores is actually in between. You know, Ford sees things in a very black or white way. You definitely see, not just with the host, with everything. He definitely does. And that's just not how Dolores is. She's very layered. She's had a lot going on in her life, and she's starting to get real emotion, and she's starting to be able to make choices for herself. Something that definitely scares Ford. He wants to be the one in control. You know, he wants to be the one playing God, and he wants to be the man behind everything, and you definitely do see that. You know, he is losing control, and there's absolutely nothing he can do about it, and it's very sad to watch because I kind of feel bad for him, but at the same time, he is a sick man. He's a sick man who created this world, and it's a terrible place, and you definitely are starting to see that here. Now, the way the Man in Black fits into all this is way different than what I thought was going to happen. I thought that he was going to be the reason for all the events that happened 30 years ago. As we know, there hasn't been anything that crazy, that catastrophic, and that crazy since 30 years ago, which I still do feel he's involved in, but it seems like he was there in a much different way. I thought that he was a guest of Westworld. You know, he said that he's been there all his life, but I'm starting to get the sense that maybe he did work with Ford. Maybe Ford sent him out there to be a tester of Westworld, and or maybe he's there, you know, to survey it or anything. You know, they need that sometimes. Maybe he's even a critic, possibly. Maybe the Man in Black is just a critic that's there to oversee Westworld and wants to get the full story of it all. And I think overall that's very interesting if that's really where we're headed with this character. I think the Man in Black is definitely going to be interesting because, again, we don't know who these characters are beyond Westworld, and we're definitely starting to see that here, and I really do like that overall. And the fact that he had this connection with Arnold, that's something that definitely Ford cares about, you definitely see. You know, with Dolores, he wants to completely forget about Arnold, but Man in Black, if he knew Arnold, that's completely fine. So I think overall, their relationship, there's definitely a lot more to it, and again, I really am waiting for that flashback episode. I know it's going to come. I know the show's probably going to pull a fast one. They're probably going to do an Arnold Ford-centric episode, because we've been talking about it so much, it just kind of needs to happen. I want to see it happen. I think it's going to be the penultimate episode. That's when these kind of things tend to happen, but we'll have to see. That's definitely going to be very interesting. As far as William, you can tell, is getting a lot more into this world, but not in the sense that he is becoming, I think, emotionless or too violent like Logan. It's more that he's starting to realize what he has to do. You know, he can't just play around. He can't just stare at things. He needs to take action. He needs to kill. If he really wants to protect Dolores, he needs to kill some people. He needs to do some things he's not proud of, but in the end, he needs to do it for Dolores, and I really do believe in their relationship. I really do feel there's a reason why these two should be together. It's not just because of the fact that Dolores cares for him. There's definitely a much larger role play, and you definitely do see that there. I think definitely there's more going on there. What exactly, I don't know. I don't really know what exactly is going to happen with that, but that's going to be really interesting. As far as, just that whole scene in general with Alonzo was so well done, and Logan and William are definitely on very different sides. You definitely do see that. I'm wondering really why they're here. I'm starting to think this was, in fact, a business trip, that they were there to basically look after Westworld and see if it really is still as good as everyone says it is. Because, again, it's losing money, and I'm starting to think that Westworld is becoming very unpopular. I mean, there's a reason we really haven't seen many other guests besides William and Logan, because we get the sense that there really aren't that many. I mean, they seem to think that, but to me it seems like they're running out of business, and I wouldn't be surprised if we end this season with them about to lose a company. I definitely could see that happening, but we'll have to see. That's going to be really interesting. I like that Elsie is going out on her own. She's not taking any prisoners. She's not letting anyone tell her what to do, and the way she blackmailed, one of the workers in the body shop is very interesting. What Maeve wants from him and what she knows, I don't really know. I think she's probably going to tell him that she can retain most of, what they get rid of, that she somehow retains all this stuff, and she's going to show him the drawing, things like that. I mean, that's all coming together, definitely. Hector was not in this episode, but he definitely is a large part of it, and you definitely do get that sense. I mean, Maeve, this is not someone who is just going to have random blackouts of things that happened in past lives. No, she's very aware of what's going on, and she knows people are fucking with her. She knows people are fucking with her. She knows that she herself is being fucked over, and she's tired of it, and I don't blame her for that. I mean, if you are consistently taken advantage of, you're going to hate yourself. You really are. And that's something that Maeve really is starting to get. It's really starting to piss her off. You definitely do see that here. And I completely side with her. I get why this is pissing her off so much. I get why she's so angered by it, and I get why she's so desperate on changing it. I would be just as desperate. I like the way that's going to go. As far as the Man in Black and Teddy, I don't know if they're going to get to Wyatt. I mean, again, Teddy feels that Dolores is everything. I think that's not really the case. I think that this was meant to be the story, Dolores and Teddy, but Dolores doesn't really seem to have those feelings for Teddy anymore. It seems like now she wants to be with William, but again, it's because that's the story she was forced to live. That's the life that she's been having all her life, and now she really wants something new. She wants to change things, and I'm all for that. I like that she's going on her own. I like that most of these characters are starting to get more rebellious. And I like that in general, it's becoming harder for them to be who Ford and Bernard and who all of them, what they tell them to be. Because they aren't just felt paper. They aren't just, a bunch of animatronics. They are actual humans. And yes, they are hosts, but they have human abilities. They capture emotion, and that's something that Ford is incapable of realizing. I think he's definitely going to get a very rude awakening next week. I'm looking forward to seeing the way that that's all going to go down. Guys, we're now halfway through the season. The possibilities for what's going to happen are endless. I honestly have no idea really where we're going to go. I'm getting the sense as well with the maze that this isn't just, something of fulfillment for the host. This is also fulfillment for all the people in Westworld. I mean, again, there's something that Ford doesn't really understand. You're definitely seeing that. I mean, they're pulling back the curtain very slowly. A lot of people talk about they haven't pulled the curtain back on this show. Well, that's because in general, they don't really know what's going on, what's going on behind Westworld. We don't know what the Beyond Westworld is. We don't know what the maze is all about. I'm sure we're going to find that out soon, but we definitely do need to take some time, and I think we're going to find all that out probably in a flashback-centric episode. I think that's probably the best time to do it, but I don't know. I'm rambling on here. Let me know what you guys saw this episode. Loved your thoughts on it. Absolutely loved everything about this episode. This episode for me was one of the best by far. I think it was intense. It was crazy. I mean, it just has everything that Westworld has been so great at so far, with its great characters and its great action scenes. Everything here I really do love. This is becoming one of my favorite shows to watch every week. I really am loving everything about the show. But that's my review. Hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know what you guys thought of this episode overall. Love to your thoughts on it. We'll see you guys in my next, which will be for tonight's episode of Supergirl, and we'll see you guys for that. Okay, bye.